Unions are about power, really and truly. That's the main idea of it, power. And who has the power? Does the owner of an institute have the power, or do the workers have the power? And the unions seek to change the power balance by putting the power balance back into the hands of the workers. And unfortunately, what very often happens is it's difficult for an entire group of individuals to have a single view, so the power doesn't really end up with all the individuals. The power ends up with an individual or a couple individuals now at the top of the union. So again, it becomes another power hierarchy with someone at the top. So it could basically seem like the workers don't have much choice. You're either under the power of the employer or you're under the power of the union. But either way, you can understand as a worker why you would feel a little more reassured knowing your power is controlled by another fellow worker. I could understand the sentiment, and that's why I could understand unions. And even though I don't really make it hidden that I find many unions to be counterproductive sometimes, I could see the use of it, and I have no doubt the power of the unions. And not only the power of the unions in and of themselves, but in the power of the idea of the union. For example, the video I did yesterday on the NBA and the power of the union with the NBA. And even though each NBA player is a star on their own, one single star can't really stand on their own. They could be pressured out. So if you have all together now, that's the idea. So in this case, we're talking Trinidad and Tobago and our unions. And primarily now, the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, tutor, and what they are up to these days. They are doing some protest, but not protest, of course, because they're not protesting during this time and starving children of their education. No, the teachers wouldn't protest. They are just resting and reflecting, or whatever else they usually call it. Alright, so if you haven't clicked that like button yet, or touched it, or tapped it, or punched it, or smashed it, or whatever, however you like to deal with the like button, you do just that, and do that at this moment, and drop a comment, tell me what you think. Do you see yourself more as a union style person and wanting to be part of the group and getting your power and strength in the group? Or would you prefer go it alone and reap the rewards of going it alone and also face the consequences of just that? Okay, so let's get into it. Also, if you are not subscribed yet, please do subscribe. That may be a good idea if you'd like to see more of the content. Do subscribe. And we're reading from the Guardian article, No Online Classes as Teachers Begin Virtual Blackout, Protest Against Disrespect. Now, I remember when I think I looked at it live, one of the few that I look at live these days, the address when the Prime Minister spoke about schools reopening. And something I said that may have been months ago now. Wow, I can say months ago and speak about these videos. So something I said, I believe months ago, was that our Prime Minister isn't as careful as he should be with his words for a Prime Minister. Now, I understand many people like the shoot from the hip style of speaking, and you're just being frank and you're being open. And that was part of the argument for Donald Trump over in the United States. And I understood that. And I follow Trump on Twitter. It was funny, it was entertaining, but really and truly, if I was in that country, that wouldn't be what you'd want from the leader of your country. And the reason being is that many people react off of things the leader says. So even if you didn't mean for that to happen, doing something that would now affect thousands of people negatively because of the tone of something you said, while all it may have needed was another tone, that seems a little hard to excuse as just you being yourself and being open and frank, when you have an entire country in the balance. That's just the way I see it. And when I heard him speak about the teachers union, and they were talking about some of the criticisms the teachers unions were having about the reopening of schools, and one of the journalists asked him about it, and he said something to the effect that all the staff that is being paid by the government or by the people of Trinidad and Tobago to go out and work in these institutes will be there, or something to that effect, with that glint where you know it seems to be a bit targeted. And when he said that, I believe I was speaking to someone at that very moment, and I told him, I think Tutor would have something to say about that. And here we have it. They have something to say about it. The disrespect. All laptops, tablets, and cell phones used to conduct online classes daily will today remain off and disconnected as thousands of preschool, primary, and secondary school teachers embark on a day of rest and reflection. The Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association has declared September 30th and October 5th as 2 full blackout days, and advised parents and students that no online classes will be conducted on today, nor will class material be posted for students to complete. The teacher president has declared that if teachers decided to rest, then there's nothing that anybody can say. In a social media communication disseminated to teachers and members following an emergency meeting last week, Tutor discussed protests to be taken in response to several issues. Chief among them was the alleged disrespect by the Ministry of Education after officials refused to discuss with Tutor the way forward in reopening of schools safely. Now, part of the issue Tutor seems to be having is that they are going to reopen schools for physical classes for Form 4s, 5s, and 6s, and those who are vaccinated would be there for in-person physical classes, and those who are not vaccinated would have to be home, and then they would have to have online classes. And what Tutor is saying is that they don't see it as being feasible for them to do both of those, and then many of these teachers would also have their lower form classes that they would have to teach online classes for also. So the workload is going to be, triplicate would be that word. And the teachers are saying it's just too much. But not all teachers will be participating in staying offline. The Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha said it was unaware of this call to protest, and in a memo advised teachers at SDMS run schools to report for duty as usual. Now, if you looked at my video that I have mentioned so many times in so many other videos since then on multiculturalism in Trinidad and Tobago, here you have one of the clear differences. And you could see one of the differences that manifests later on in life and later on in our society. You could see it there. The SDMS, which is the organization that runs many or most, I'm not sure, of the Hindu schools in Trinidad and Tobago. Are there any in Tobago? Question. The organization that runs these, they are saying they know nothing of this protest action, that their teachers are going to be coming out to school and they are going to be teaching their students. You can clearly see that some groups have different priority levels on different aspects of society. That's just the cultures and how the cultures have it. And to think that these different approaches would have the same result will be an illogical thought. Of course, there'll be different results because of different approaches. What these results would be, well, I guess we would all see. Tutor urged teachers and members to keep contents of the message, that's the message they sent out to do this protest action. They urged them to keep it among the members of the fraternity, which obviously didn't happen. The union also reportedly said the Ministry of Education must be reminded that the teaching fraternity creates and drives the rudder of society that would steer our country into the future. Rest and reflect and apply for the day after and not before. That's just some union techniques on how they get their days in there. And basically the message is the Ministry of Education needs to understand that the teachers have the power in their hand. They're saying they have the power in this case, and if you do not want to come to an agreement with us, well, there will be no way forward. And this power again is granted because they have the group. If all the teachers in the country decide that they aren't going to teach, That's really something difficult. How are you going to counter that? There's no law that is created or that you could create that would be able to counter that. Are you going to, even if, okay, imagine this, even if you could assemble all the police and all the regiment in this country to go out and arrest the teachers for breaking some law that they must teach, which is already very strange to get. Can you imagine the picture of military and police officials grabbing Miss So-and-so and teacher this and good old Tanty that has been teaching history for the last 40 years, and a soldier who was taught by this? We all know such things aren't going to happen. And that's the power that the teachers know they have. When they have this entire group all on their side, that's the point I was making when I was saying it's about the culture. Because the culture is the people. And when you have the people on your side, there's nearly nothing that any authority can do to counter that. And that's just reality. Tutor President, no gratitude at all for teachers. Defending her members against critics, Tutor President Antonia Tika de Freitas said, people have been saying, and it is quite unfortunate, that teachers are at home and are just drawing a salary and not doing anything. And that is very, very unfair. She claimed teachers were one of the first groups that sprung into action after COVID-19 forced the closure of schools in March 2020. This is when they use their own money and resources to buy devices and do packages and to provide pastoral care for students. And that has persisted. And this is where I see some of the problems with unions and groups. This is the same problem with group work. How do we know that everyone is being efficient if everyone is being marked on everyone's work? So if this was a private sector, then no one could complain about a teacher being at home and drawing a salary, because it's a willing arrangement, it's a voluntary arrangement. If it's a private school and I want to ensure my child remains signed up at this private school, I would continue paying to keep paying these teachers' salaries. And on the other side, these teachers would also need something to make sure that they keep themselves in work. So they would, of course, be looking for things to make sure that the money keeps coming in. But when you have something in the public sector or in the group sector, let's put it as that, because that's how I see the public sector, where we all group and pool our resources and we spend it as nobody's money to do things that should be helping all of us. Now, this isn't necessarily an attack saying that public schools should be shut down, but it's just highlighting one of the clear issues that public schools create, and something it could seem like private institutes could alleviate. But of course, there's always nuance in every situation. There's balance to be had. And I guess that's what we're trying to discuss, where exactly that balance will be. Because as it is right now, parents could feel hard done that teachers can decide, okay, we're staying home, and these teachers are still getting paid, and they don't have to work because they all join together and say, well, we're not going to work. That could feel hard done for. And the reason they could do that is because they are getting public money. And you aren't paying them directly. If these were private schools and the teachers decided, well, we are just going to stay home and stop teaching, well, the parents would stop paying their tuition fees and the school will fold. And that will answer that. And as cruel as it could sound for people who are currently in that situation, and of course they do not want their salaries to be lost, and I understand that. I'm not saying that's what we want, but I'm talking about just reality here. For many, in many other situations, that's what they are facing. Right now, the taxi drivers are raising their fares because what they are arguing is that their money is being lowered by them being forced to carry fewer passengers. They are being forced to take home a lower salary, and things all around them are raising. So what are they going to do? How are they going to recoup that money? Okay, well, they have to raise their fares. And the taxi drivers right now are upset. There's a row right now between the taxi drivers and PTSE. I don't know how many of you saw the advertisement from PTSE. I think I'll try to put it up there. And where PTSC took a dig at the taxi drivers because the taxi drivers raised their fares by, I believe, $4, and PTSC was showing that their entire fare is $4. So PTSC was just doing some marketing at the taxi drivers' expense, and personally, I wasn't offended, but apparently quite a few taxi drivers were. Taxi drivers hurt by insensitive PTSC ad. The Port of Spain to Shogunas Taxi Association has described as insensitive an advertisement by the Public Transport Service Corporation, PTSC, highlighting its $4 bus tickets with the social media hashtag taxi nothing. Association President Miguel Dalabile said yesterday its members were hurt by the PTSC's response to their announcement on Tuesday that taxi fares were to go up. But PTSC Chairman Edwin Gooding said while the taxi driver's position on the fare increase was understandable, the corporation was merely showcasing the fact that the fares had increased by $4, the price of a bus ticket. Gooding said the marketing strategy was just a response to the taxi increase to remind commuters of the cheaper fare. However, Dalabile said, as a state-run enterprise, here's the problem. As a state-run enterprise, PTSC employees were better protected than self-employed taxi drivers. It is very disrespectful of them to try to discredit us, Dalabile said. And listen, I can understand that argument from the Taxi Association. The reason PTSC can charge $4 per ticket is because I'm sure PTSC gets some subvention or some money from the public police. And then when you consider it, that if these taxi drivers are doing things correctly, they would be paying taxes on their money that they earn from their taxi driving, and that money would then be put into the public purse to pay these PTSC workers. And that's how these PTSC fares can stay at this lower price. So you could understand why a taxi driver could feel hard done by PTSC showing off with their lower prices, while their lower prices are lower because they're taking from the taxi driver. Now, the argument against that, of course, is that the lower bus fares help the entire country, and they may be helping some of these taxi drivers' very own children. And I can understand the argument, especially in a smaller country like ours, Trinidad and Tobago. 1.3 to 1.4 million people. That's not that many. And in a smaller country like ours, I can understand the argument where we may not mind pitching in to allow for there to be a bus service that could be reliable and allow for a cheaper alternative for those who cannot afford it, and the taxes come out of the pockets from those who can afford it. And that's an understandable argument. But when you have a case where this bus service seems to be in competition with people trying to run their own private thing, it could feel unfair. Like you are using my money to run against me and outcompete me, and then showing off that you are outcompeting me. It's not on a free market. And that's the thing when it comes to the grouping of things, when it comes to the union mentality, when it comes to the collectivist things, the grouping changes things from the open market. But really and truly, how many things are actually on the open market? Because even in the taxi driver's case, how can it be that every single taxi driver on the route has decided to raise their fare at the same time by the same amount? That's not a free open market. That's because they are in an association. I assure you, if you go and try to ply your taxi on their route and say, okay, I'm going to charge $5, and I can assure you if you do that with a 7-seater or how much ever you can hold, you are going to always be the first to fill and the first to leave. But I can also assure you, it may literally put your life at risk according to which taxi stand you go on and do that. And I believe there may be laws against doing it. So even in the case of the taxi drivers, what they are complaining about, where the grouping of things in the public scheme has allowed for the decreasing of competition between them and the PTSC, it's the same thing with them. They can manipulate their prices the way they are because they are grouped together. If there was competition among them and each person had their individual taxi service where they could change their price if they wanted. And I could jump on the route with a limousine and say, I'm going to charge $50 to go to Port of Spain. And who wants to pay that pays that. But then someone could decide, okay, I'm going to go with the quantity side, and I'm going to charge back to an old fare of $7 and leave it in the free market. No, many people wouldn't like that, because then it's going to balance things differently. I was thinking about something the other day. On a post of mine, someone was talking about how we treat the garbage collectors and what we think about garbage collectors. I believe it was on a post regarding something to do with education and etc. And I was thinking to myself, in a free market, garbage collectors wouldn't be where they are, The reason garbage collectors can be paid that is because there's something holding them down to that position. If you had to pay someone to take up your garbage out of your pocket every day, I can assure you that person would have made more money. Think about it. So even the criticism some people have that they want more free market, some of these people are benefiting from things unknowingly that aren't really about the free market. And how many things really are free in that case? So the taxi drivers in their case are also doing the same thing. They have a union together in their association that allows them to, on one day, increase the fare across the entirety of that route. And there's no competition in that. That is a monopoly. Maybe a small monopoly, but it is a monopoly. And if it breaks up, I can assure you prices will go down. So just what the taxi drivers are complaining about, they are doing the same. But can you blame them? As a taxi driver, would you want to be all there by your individual fighting up and fighting each one of each other's prices down? So you all are doing a race down to the bottom in a competition for taxi fares, while the supermarket associations are together and they have a monopoly on their prices, and many of the larger business associations are together and they have monopolies on different prices there. So if you have associations at all levels, then can you blame people for wanting associations at their own small levels? And these associations, as they grow, create monopolies. And that's just some of what creates the problems in our society. And the reality is, for some people who are seeing these problems on their own, that's what might create some of the solutions. Someone messaged me. I'm getting more messages regularly these days in my DM. Someone messaged me, I believe it's a musician, and he was asking me to help highlight an issue where some musicians are facing, and that some musicians during this time haven't had any work, and I believe they had one $5,000 subvention from the government at some point last year, and some are still just trying to survive there. And I could understand some people may not have much pity for that, because some people don't look at music as much of a job. And don't think only of it as musicians, think about it as the arts in an entirety. And the reality is, the arts are all around us. What I'm doing here right now has quite a bit of the arts in it, quite a bit of graphic design, etc., that goes into it. But all the creatives and all the artists and all the musicians in the country and join together in one group here and saying that, okay, well, if you don't do this and you don't raise these prices, well, then we are going to all stop doing all your graphic design work. There isn't anything like that in Trinidad. So because of that, they are just there out floating in nowhere. And some of these musicians and artists and creatives are really suffering in this time. And in this, I could see on this side where we as a country are already very deep into the whole public spending idea. And if we are already spending so much as a public, then wouldn't it be plausible to spend some more on the creatives that help to run certain things in society? But also, in saying that, I understand that anytime you ask government to spend more money, it hardly ever goes in the direction you expect it to go in. So on the creative side, I think many creatives, many musicians, many people in those more informal sectors need to use the opportunities that are being created right now. Social media has created opportunities that were not there before for people in those industries. And if you have some kind of talent, you have some kind of ability, display that ability. And trust me, people will see the value in it and eventually may even pay the value for it. If you want to be on the open market, then you have to be on the open market. And on the flip side, maybe as creatives, and I can understand for many creatives, being individualist allows for more creativity, at least in your lane. You have what you have in your head and you could put that out there. But really and truly, what gives the taxi association the power to raise the fare so that you with your guitar trudging around the country to go play for a gig masked up? What gives them that ability is they are an association. Maybe if you are more collaborated with more people and you form more groups, maybe there will be more power in that. That's all I have for today. Tell me what you think. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think if you are creative. Tell me what do you think about the present state of the economy for you. How are you surviving? Are things as difficult as some might make it seem, or are you thriving in this new and strange terrain? Tell me what you think. Drop that comment. Tell me what you think about the unions and their place in society right now. And I'll see you again tomorrow.
Feel the music, rising with the time.